I know it may not feel like it right now with the way that everything transpired this past season. And a lot of the negative publicity, the backlash, the public apathy towards the Cowboys franchise as a whole is very well warranted. I will not even consider disputing that fact. Okay. But with those things being true, the Cowboys, even still, despite that, are in a win it now window. And it's not to necessarily break any news or anything like that. There's roughly half the team thinks that they are. The Cowboys clearly are one of them. Roughly half the league thinks that they are in a win it now window, and the Cowboys clearly are one of those. Okay, so before we talk about the proper way for a team in a win now window to build and structure themselves to have the best chance to do so, we first got to agree, or we don't have to agree. I know how I feel, but I'm going to give you guys 2 points, two reasons as to why that is. Okay, verification, if you will. The first of which is they will soon have 3 players. They're soon going to have 3 players on their roster on max contract extensions, and all 3 of those players, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, they play premium positions. So that's point number one. And number two, there's now an offensive coach whose contract is directly synonymous with the 2 highest paid offensive players on its roster. So they've kept the most important coaching position intact from in-house. Outside of him and Lunda Wells, there's nobody else that was brought back from the previous regime under Mike McCarthy, unless you acknowledge Steve Shimko, who was just an analyst, and now he's been elevated to the actual coaching staff as I believe, the pass game coordinator. Could be wrong there. So let's just agree to disagree. If you don't believe me that the Cowboys are in a win now window, okay? So what is a team in their situation? You got premium position at the quarterback spot, max extension. Premium position at the receiver spot, max extension. Soon to be the same thing at edge. Might be another situation. There might be 4 of them with an interior defensive tackle position, 3 tech, and also a Digizua. All right. So how does a team in the Cowboys situation? What's the best way to go about spending that money? If we can convince the Joneses to do so, and it's really just the Joneses convincing themselves to stop selling the public lies about their cap situation. I just wrote about this today over on cowboyscountry.com. Please go check that out, about why the salary cap is a myth. Talked about this many times before, but finally published my first piece, and I could not be more excited about the opportunity to do so, but then also just I couldn't be more proud of the steps that I've taken and what I've been able to achieve because of people like you out there that's watching this video, that's continued to support me. I cannot thank you enough, truly. So the evolution of the Lando show continues, but convince the Joneses to convince themselves that the salary cap is not an issue. There are loopholes to exploit, the second of which we'll be discussing again tomorrow. If you want to win and maximize your return on investment by spending big in free agency, which position should you do so at? And that, to me, we're going to look at an article here in just a second about the bust rates at certain specific positions in round 1. Okay. But then we're just going to use our imagination and allocate that throughout the rest of the actual NFL draft. Rounds 2 through 7 is probably significantly worse. You spend big in the trenches, most particularly on the defensive side of the football, because not only are you wrestling with fully grown men who are highly technical, you're also reacting. Okay, so you don't have the luxury of knowing what's going to happen prior to the ball being snapped the way that the offensive line does. Offensive line is actually the highest, but the offensive tackle position is the highest hit rate in terms of guys who are selected in round one that make it to their second contract in the NFL. The Cowboys fans have PTSD; they're scarred by Tyler Guyton, so they're saying, well, the offensive line is off the table in round one this year. Well, it shouldn't be. Okay, so this data point here, this statistic validates my take from weeks past. When the Eagles put the product out there on Super Bowl Sunday and they completely overwhelmed the Chiefs' offensive front. You better be solid up front on offense too, especially with that team in your division. Okay. So this, I would hope, inspires you if you're one of those out there who says absolutely no offensive lineman up front or in the first round. Perhaps reconsider that when you just simply consider the hit rates at that position. Okay, so you want to spin big on the defensive interior because it's a difficult position to translate. And then you draft skill positions or offensive linemen in April. So spin big on the defensive front seven, but particularly in the defensive interior. Because like I said, there are far less big athletic people in the world. 300 pounders, 300 pounders that are highly technical, football savvy. And just, athletic. They are very few and far between. Just think about it, like just practically speaking. Okay. Every school in America has at least one dude that runs a 4.3. Not every school in America, regardless of the level, has, and even high school, that's probably true. Most high schools nowadays, almost every single one of them has a dude that's going to run a 4.3. But not, maybe 20% of those, 15% of those schools have a guy in the trenches that's going to actually go play Division I and NFL football. So you're highly technical. You're wrestling against grown men. It's a nuanced position as far as leverage and technique is concerned. But on top of that, you're also tasked with reacting to what the offense is doing. Okay, so we're going to take a peek at this article right here. If you're a team like the Cowboys are, we've already agreed, 2 bullet points, that are clearly in a win now window. Even if you don't think they are, they think that they are. What is the proper way? How do you allocate your spending in free agency to go about maximizing the speed at which that return on investment is a massive green check mark for you? How do you do it? How do you maximize your spending? Okay, you don't want to go spend still, it's weird considering what happened last year with Josh Jacobs and Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. But the running back position translates as well and as quickly as any of them. And I would argue that it's the number one. Just like you plug and play the running back spot and you hit the ground running because it's so dependent upon quarterback, scheme, offensive line. There are 3 dependents. It is not independent of the offensive line and the play caller in the same way that the receiver position might be. Receivers also have to be aided by their play caller too and their scheme, sure. But in a lot of cases, even the most talented ones with the worst offensive-minded coaches can go win and score a 50-yard touchdown in a one-on-one matchup. They're an independent variable. The running back is a very dependent variable. So we got an insightful study here from ESPN producer Paul Hembekadze. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. doesn't really matter, who tracked the hit rate of first round picks by position group over a 20-year period from 2000 through the 2019 NFL drafts. He tracked down first round players who signed a second contract with the team that drafted them. Okay, so we understand that part. The highest hit rates all involve the offensive line. Centers are the most likely position to re-sign. So centers are a good position to attack in round one of the draft. We knew that last year. We talked about that a little bit. Offensive tackles is number 2. That's great. So between 2000 and 2019, at the center position, 12 total centers were taken in the first round. Travis Frederick being one of those. 11 out of those 12, for a 92% hit rate, reached the second contract with the team that drafted them in round one. That's crazy. 92%. That's unbelievable. The next closest number is offensive tackle at 59%. I'm going to say that one more time. Once again, for a team who thinks that they are in a win now window, which the Cowboys clearly do, even if you don't think that they are. I've just detailed why. The proper way to go about spending in free agency is not on the offensive side of the football. I know what we just witnessed last year with Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs. Okay, those are outliers. Those are the exceptions. Those are not the rule. The NFL is trending back into a more physical, heavier personnel, run first style. Yes. But running backs translate quickly. They are the dependent variable to 3 other factors, really. Defensive tackle is different. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th on the list here, but it really should be 8th because they actually have this chart here. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up on the YouTube side of things. This chart will show you that what's going on with my camera here. Let's unplug it real quick. These technical difficulties are relentless. Okay, so this chart here will show you. Let me share my screen. Right here. The hit rates, okay? Defensive tackle is 7th on the list. It should be 8th, bare minimum, behind running backs as well. The reason why running backs is so low here, my screen, let me move it to the other side so y'all can see. Actually, swap that. The reason why running back is such a low hit rate for this exercise here, signing their second contract with the team that drafted them in round one, is because it's the most oft injured position in all of sports. The half-life of a running back is less that of any other position. They just get banged up. It's just the way that it is. It's unfortunate, but it's the reality. Okay, so I'm listing running back ahead of defensive tackle. So DT really should be the 8th highest percentage of hit rates in the first round. Why? Because the technical nuances involved, the pandemic level proportions of guys that are 300 pounds, but who have the football IQ, the athleticism, and the love of the game to perform at a high level and to win against, the offensive linemen are at a premium. There's so few of them. Okay, but on top of all those 3 things, while it is incredibly rare to have a 300-plus pound man who is athletic enough, smart enough, likes the game enough, and also technical enough, you're also reacting to what the offense is doing. You don't have the luxury, like the offensive line does, in the trenches of knowing what you're going to do. And you almost always have an extra number. So you're benefited by having a tight end to help you chip, or a running back to help you off the edge, or you're comboing people in the middle with your center and your guard, right? You got help because you usually have numbers, at least 50% of the time anyways. But defensive tackle, you don't. It's you. A lot of times you're eating the double team. So like I said, once again, not only are you wrestling one other grown man, you're wrestling two. Oftentimes at the same time when you're a defensive tackle. You don't get very many one-on-one opportunities unless you play alongside somebody like Chris Jones. Okay? So the premise here, and I'm going to cut it off and end it with this. I want people to understand smart business. Not that the Joneses do. I'm just a guy with a camera and a microphone. The Joneses are still trying to convince you that the salary cap is a problem. I'm sitting here telling you, I've published an article today telling you that it's not, and I proved why. And I'm not the only one that's doing it. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here. I'm just saying you can find a written piece if you much prefer to do the due diligence that way. CowboysCountry.com, The Lando Show, the salary cap is fake. Go find it. It's all over my YouTube too, from years past. They can easily free up $100 million with 3 simple moves. And they could spend all of it if they wanted to in free agency. The money that they're paying Dak Prescott right now, the money that they're paying CeeDee Lamb right now, the money that they're about to pay Micah Parsons, potentially even Osa, who's a free agent, so he doesn't really count for the sake of this argument here. Tyler Smith is going to be on a expiring contract here shortly. Did I say Tyron? If I said Tyron, I meant Tyler. You guys know what I'm talking about. The left guard for the Dallas Cowboys. The money is never going to be an issue unless you choose for it to be. Void years equals financial flexibility. Spend on the defensive side of the football, the front 7, but with the heavy emphasis on defensive tackle. Because of the chart that I just showed you, everything I just laid out. Let me get back to my own self here. Okay. The last thing that I want to leave you guys with is this. Because I don't know that it was emphasized enough in my article, but it was mentioned. And you can, once again, like I said, feel free to go check that out. The ever-ballooning salary cap. And it's $30 million annual increase. Just like it did last year, just like it did this year. The new salary cap in the NFL is now projected to be anywhere between $277 and $281 million, up from $255 last year, which was up from $225 the year prior. Next year, do the math, we're looking at somewhere in the $310 million ballpark. Okay, so what Howie Roseman knows that some fans do, and that every owner or general manager should, is that the value of the NFL dollar as it relates to the NFL salary cap is not the same today as it will be in 2029. It will be technically less valuable because $1 as it relates to 225 is more valuable, or 225 million, that means it's more valuable than $1 as it relates to $285 million. Okay. You overspend this year, defer money into the future. Remember, void years equals financial flexibility. And then you let the ever ballooning salary cap make up for your $30-ish million of technical overspending from the year prior, year over year over year. And it's just that simple. The salary cap is much more an accounting principle than it is any sort of hard financial restriction. I'm Lando from the Lando Show. This is Sports Below the Surface and the truth about the Dallas Cowboys. Check me out at cowboyscountry.com. Find me at The Lando Show on all platforms. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and remember that prayer changes things and the war is already won. Talk to you guys soon. Did I not end the recording? Oh, shoot. Sorry, guys.